5 years ago, when I hit 40, I, had been an exercise fitness personality, done all this stuff, had been in magazines and swimsuit photo shoots and all this kind of stuff. But I got to a point where it was like everything I was doing was no longer working.
So many of us don't know or understand the entirety of hormones.
It's my mission to just get it out there and let women know that you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to, suffer through these awful diets. Give me a few people, give me 12 weeks, let me work with them, and let's see what happens.
There's a part of us that feels inadequate.
You've just got to put your foot out there. And if you believe in it, just stick with it and just keep showing up and doing it.
That's more than enough to make any of us worthy to go after our dreams and to have that dedication and to keep on doing it.
Who's missing out if you don't step up for what you believe in? Why am I not doing it? And I realized at that point, my why wasn't big enough.
It's so far removed from the money. This is Behind the Boss Lady podcast with your host, Shelby St.clair. I'm taking you behind the scenes of soul-led entrepreneurship as I hold space for paradigm-shifting conversations with awakened boss ladies. You're going to hear from women who share the good, the bad, and the ugly of what their journey to success looked like, leaving you with the advice and inspiration you need so that you never give the fuck up on your dreams. Your soul led you here for a reason. Join me every Wednesday as we dive deep into what it means to be an awakened boss lady in your life and business. Hello and welcome back to the show. Today's episode is going to be incredible because we have my friend Corry Matthews with us. And I'm not going to say what she does or who she is because she's brilliant and she's going to share all of that with you. But I do want to give just a backstory about how we met, because you know that I run a social networking and masterminding community internationally. And that's where I met Corry. She came to one of the events. We just got to talking. She started sharing her brilliance. She became part of the community. And it just led to one thing after another. Now we're here and we get to share her brilliance with you and really learn about her story. Because I think that her story is so unique and she's doing something that is so critical for women as we get older and the things that we naturally fall into and experience, but we have no guidance on how to just move through that time in our life. So, Corry, thank you for being here. And I cannot wait to just share you and your message and your work with all of the listeners. So let's just get started. Who
Awesome.
are you? What do you do?
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat. So, I have been in the health and wellness industry for the past 25 years. So, it was literally right out of high school. In high school, I had an anatomy teacher and he was amazing. He talked about how the body works and how it moves. And from there, I was just hooked. And I was hooked on the fact that if you take care of your body, if you, weight train your body, if you do proper nutrition, all the things that will happen for your body. And just from there, I just went through all of it and I was like just fascinated by it. So I went to college and I ended up in biology and we were studying, the study of the cells. And I said to one of the professors, I said, where's the bodies? Like, where's the anatomy? And I said, we're not looking at any of that. And they said, oh, you're in the wrong major. And I said, okay, so whatever major that is, sign me up. And so I moved out of biology into exercise physiology. So I really got to study more about the body and just if you haven't gotten a chance to kind of look at your body and think about your body, just everything about it is just miraculous. How, the cells turn over, how the body regenerates, just everything about it. And so I was passionate about it and found that if I learned how to train the body, if I learned how to keep the body in movement and how to nourish the body, things would continue and go really well. And so I kind of followed in that path, but I also was a dancer. So I had danced in high school. I was always on the dance team. And I was like, okay, there's got to be a way to put these two together. So that kind of started where I led into becoming a fitness competitor. And it was, how do you do things like one arm push-ups and high jumps, but you also lift weights? And so I got really into competing. At that same time, I had met my husband. So, in this whole story, I'll tell you, we've been married for 24 years. So he's been there from the very beginning of it all. His dream was always to marry a fitness pro, which is exactly what I ended up being. But so it was really the fascinating part of putting it all together. So I dive deeper in. I started teaching group exercise classes. I was doing personal training, and it was everything about the body. And so finally, then I took that on and, competed in the world of fitness competitions and bodybuilding and became a professional in the sport. I say my claim to fame is that I got to do Arnold Schwarzenegger's bodybuilding show, his big, gigantic one in Columbus, Ohio. That was my first pro show, which was a huge deal. But I remember showing up that show and I was like, they gave me number 13, which is my absolute luckiest number on the planet. And then I was competitor number 13 to like go on stage. And, I placed 13th in the show. So I was like, this is really where I'm meant to be. And so I just really enjoyed all that. I went on then to open up 2 nutrition stores. So I was helping people with supplements and nutrition and training and all the aspects of it. And, going through all of this and enjoying it. And along the way, before I opened any of those nutrition stores, I found myself, my husband is a Marine. We ended up in Okinawa, Japan, and I had one of the Marine Corps commanders, because he knew I was teaching classes and all this kind of stuff. And he said, I've got pregnant Marines that I need to get back in shape. And I said, oh, I was like the wives, whatever. And he goes, no, no, no. The service members, the people that are putting, their lives on the line. I need them combat ready in 12 weeks. Like, what do you got for me? I was like, okay. So, at this point, I'm like 23 years old and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So at that point, I was actually doing my master's degree in sports medicine. And I applied to the school and I said, what if I do my thesis on, women during pregnancy and exercise and training and, can I do this and see, what it looks like. And they agreed. And so the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps pre-postnatal program was born. I designed it, got to really work with some really incredible women. But the weird thing is that, I had people all the time asking me, well, you've never been pregnant. Because at this point I hadn't had kids. And I said, well, I looked at him and I real quickly started saying, well, is your OBGYN a male? And they would say yes. And I said, well, he's never had kids either. And so it was kind of like,
Mm.
okay, I get it. I get it. Okay. So maybe you know what you're doing. But so that was kind of my first step into hormones and working with hormones with pre and postpartum. And then, of course, it carried into me having kids. And, I got to then design Goldstream International's pre postnatal program. So really got to continue working with it. So all this fast forwards till I get to today when, this is perfect timing because my birthday is tomorrow. So this is like perfect timing for this. But 5 years ago, when I hit 40, I, had been an exercise fitness personality, done all this stuff, had been in magazines and swimsuit photo shoots and all this kind of stuff. But I got to a point where I was like, everything I was doing was no longer working. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And at that point, my business partner is 5 years older than me. So she was 45 and she's like, I think it's really our hormones. I really think it's our hormones. Like we've never really dove into this with our business with hormones, but I think it's our hormones. And she's my business partner in all of our bodybuilding shows. So we are still putting on bodybuilding shows. We put on 3 bodybuilding shows every year. If you've seen bodybuilders, they've got these incredible physiques. And here
Mhm.
she and I are, 40 and 45, and feeling like the frumpiest, fattest women on the planet. So not only, feeling unhealthy, but our confidence was just shot. Like we just felt like, ugh. And so she goes, I think we need to do something radical. I've done a lot of research and, there's a lot of stuff on hormone research and stuff. But I think, in order for us to do this, we're going to have to give up a couple things. And so she kind of sent me this parameter of what it looked like. And I looked at it and I said, I don't know that we can do this. See, after every event that we ever put on together, we would go out we would go out somewhere and we'd sit down for dinner and stuff. She'd always order a drink and I would always order a Diet Coke. And after the meal, I'd always get a brownie. And, every morning without clockwork, she's like, okay, we're stopping by Starbucks because you need your coffee. So this plan that she presented with me in front of me, we had to give up all our alcohol, we had to give up all our sugar, and we had to give up all our caffeine. And I said, you're crazy, right? There's no way we can do this. And, we started diving in and basically put ourselves back to school, learning the science of everything. And we started looking at, oh, okay, so alcohol directly ties into estrogen dominance. Oh, and so caffeine ties into cortisol, and the sugar ties into insulin, which, if you've ever looked at anything health and wellness, you know that those are big buzzwords that are out there. And I was like, oh, shoot, we really have to do this, right? And so we said, okay, we're going to do this. It's 21 days. We're going to focus on this. We're going to go through it. And all of a sudden, all the things that we were suffering, they started changing and things started
Mm.
feeling better. There wasn't until one point I almost lost it when my husband and I were at a soccer tournament. He's like, I'm going to go get an iced coffee. Do you want one? And I looked at him, I said, I'm in the 21 days of no coffee. Don't even ask me that question.
Don't tempt me.
Yes. I was like, don't even ask. But what we found is that, you know, so many times I hear women talk about, oh, I'm going to go low carb, or I'm going to over exercise, or I'm just going to eat 1,000 calories. And hormones are so critical to women. I talk about, like, on my YouTube channel, I actually put something called Hormones 101 because nobody actually understands that hormones are the foundation of it all, from kids as early as teens to pregnancy, postpartum. When we start hitting perimenopause and menopause, hormones really, like, they make the world go round. And what most women think is it's estrogen and progesterone. But I like to call those the sex hormones. And it isn't just those hormones. What it is that it's all the other hormones that when your estrogen and progesterone start to change, they get completely off balance. And so you can exercise as hard as you want. You can, diet a certain way. But if you aren't balancing and optimizing those hormones, it doesn't matter what you do, that weight's not going to come off. And so when that happened, that was kind of our mission. And so for the last, really quickly, we saw changes in our bodies. Within 6 months, I had lost 25 pounds of body fat that was just stuck. And Stacia, my business partner's story, I mean, it took her 7 months, but she lost 65 pounds. And
Wow.
she wasn't overweight by any means to begin with, but it was just inflammation. And, during that time, she was diagnosed with Hashimoto's and celiac disease and high testosterone. And I was like, we have to tell women about this. And so we worked on it and we worked on it. And, it's interesting that this podcast couldn't be any perfect timing because we're actually launching our 4-week course on exactly this, on how to reset the hormones to lose weight and keep it off. And it's just, now it's my mission to just get it out there and let women know that you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to, suffer through these awful diets, because there's probably one or two things that you're eating that are the problems. And if you can figure out what those are, then it's like food freedom. So
Yeah.
I know that was a lot, but that's kind of like the
No.
journey of where it took me to get here with, like, why, but it's
Yeah,
just something
no,
that
it's so
I'm so passionate
good.
about.
Yeah, and it's so needed because so many of us don't know or understand the entirety of hormones. Right? We don't understand why there's these highs and these lows, and why we can feel so good one day and then we're god awful the next, and we just want to like wring our husband's neck, and all these different things that come with hormone imbalance, right? And I think that there's such a big change that happens later on in a woman's life, but also we experience all of this hormonal stuff our entire life. And it's like we don't understand why. Why do we have this pain that we can't make go away, and all of this stuff? And there's so much tied to our health and what we eat and the just vitality that we're giving our bodies. So I think that we could talk a lot about that. But before we do that, I am so curious as to how you said, people were like, well, have you ever been pregnant? Right? As you're creating these courses, as you were offered that first opportunity by the Marine Corps to create this program for their servicewomen who are coming back after giving birth, and just to really help them get that strength back and ready to get back into action, was there anything that came up for you as far as mindset or fears or anything like that that you kind of faced in that moment of being given this opportunity to do something that you hadn't done before?
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, at that point, I was 22 years old. So it was, I was like, who am I really that they're going to give this to? And of course, it was like, on one hand, I'm thinking it's science. It's science, and there's, functionality and everything that I know about the body, that yes, there is a way to do this. But I think in my field, and it's one of the things that I've always wanted to make sure that I always do, is that I give back to those that are younger. I had this opportunity. It was later after that that I didn't even realize it, but that instance really helped, where I went into a gym and I had come in and I had my master's degree. I had developed this Marine Corps program. And, when I talked to the supervisor, they were like, okay, well, we're not going to let you do that just yet. And I said, well, why? I don't understand. And there was this other trainer, and she had all the same credentials as me. And, she was getting paid more. And I wasn't actually allowed to work with anyone that was pregnant or postpartum. And I said, I don't understand why. And I basically got really reprimanded. I got sent home, and they're like, you need to go home and you can't do this. And I remember at that point, with my husband looking at me, and he's like, don't let this defeat you. Like, you belong there. You really belong there. You know what you're doing, And so I guess, from that, with when I was in the Marine Corps, I think maybe at that point I was a little naive, and I just decided I was just going to go for it. And I said, I know the science and I understand that. So I think that was the differences in the aspect of it. So then again, when I saw it, when I was in the gym and I was being told, no, you can't do this, because basically it boiled down to is these two women were, 15 years older than me, had a lot more experience. And, I now looking at it now, I realized that they felt really threatened by me coming in. But, myself, I didn't understand that. I was really sitting there going, I don't understand why. Why am I not okay? Why is this not? And so, I have 2 teen daughters now, well, preteen and teen, and it's interesting talking to them about some of the things that I've learned in my life and realizing different things, and how to convey this stuff to them and just say, "You've just gotta put your foot out there, and if you believe in it, just stick with it and just keep showing up and doing it." And so that's what I did, and ultimately, there was a little hesitation of letting me do it, and I said, "Just give me a few people, give me 12 weeks, let me work with them, and let's see what happens." And and they said, "Okay, this lady that's never had a baby but understands the science of it, she was able to get them ready." But thankfully, I used that whole same thing that said, "Is your doctor a male?" Well, he's never had a baby either. So he has the same different credentials in medical training as I have in fitness and nutrition. So you should give me a chance.
I love that because that's something that so many women in business face where they have all the knowledge. They might even have all the experience, but there's that part that comes in and that little gremlin in the back of our mind that can just come and talk ourselves out of doing the thing because there's a part of us that feels inadequate.
Mhm,
But look at what could happen if you just keep pushing forward and keep going and believe and like back yourself by what you know, right?
mhm,
We all, when we step into these places of entering into a field of work, we do it because there is some knowledge behind it. And I think that so often, so many women forget that part that they are worthy because they know,
mhm,
because they've done the work, because they have that knowledge. And like that's more than enough to make any of us worthy to go after our dreams and to have that dedication and to keep on doing it. So, is there something, if somebody was listening to us right now, a word of advice that they were facing that kind of fear and telling themselves, like, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this person is right. Maybe somebody came and said that thing to them. What would you tell them?
I think it would be a matter of who's missing out if you don't step up for what you believe in. Because in that moment for me, I knew what I had to offer to these women that had just had babies. I knew it would work. I knew that this would be phenomenal for them, and I knew that I understood it without a doubt. And so I guess that was to me, like, all these people were gonna miss out on this. They weren't gonna have this opportunity. So I think that's kind of what I would tell women is that in that situation, just, who's gonna lose out if you do this? And ultimately, I think it took me a long time to say, what's the worst thing that they can say? No. But you will forever regret it if you don't just try. You'll always think, "What if I had tried? Maybe what if they would have said yes?" And if they say no, then that just means, okay, that's not the right moment. There's something else. And so you just have to figure out what that other thing is and just keep moving on. And I would say some of the best things that have ever happened in my life is because something was a no. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to have to figure out a different way to do this then if that's a no.
Yeah, that pivot, right?
Mhm.
The no not meaning no, but not necessarily just not right now.
Mhm.
Maybe there's something else they have to go through or experience or find and you never know who ends up coming back. I've had people who I talked to years ago in the beginning of my coaching business, and they're like, no, this isn't for me. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, this is the kind of work I need. This is the kind of support that I need because people have to be ready for it, especially when it comes to this kind of work that both you and I are doing, right? Because we're working on the self,
Mhm.
and people have to make that choice to work on themselves. They have to be ready to make the changes because it's not necessarily easy to be like, okay, I'm eating that thing. I really love that thing, but it's doing nothing for me. And I
Hmm.
have to change my relationship with it so that I can live a better and healthier life. Right.
It's that why. That's what we
Yeah.
tell people all the time. If your why is not deep enough, when I tell you you can't eat sugar anymore, it doesn't matter, you're just going to do it. So you really have to want it enough. And, just to be real vulnerable with anyone that listens to this for a moment, when I was looking at, losing that weight for me and actually doing the things that I needed to do to change my hormones and get to there, just wanting to lose the weight wasn't enough. I had actually listened to a Mel Robbins podcast and it was talking to this person. And basically, they called out this person a hypocrite on the podcast because what they were trying to do and share with everyone, they were being such a hypocrite of themselves. And so to myself, I said that I'm like, I'm being a hypocrite because I had always said, I know what to do to lose weight. I know what to do to get in shape. But I'm like, why am I not doing it? And I realized at that point, my why wasn't big enough until, there's this really scary story when we moved here to California, we went to the beach and my daughter went out into the water and she was swimming and she started having a really hard time and I could tell. And it's, like I always cringe when I tell people this story because I feel like the worst mother on the planet when I say this, but she was really struggling and I could tell like, oh my gosh, she has to go. I was on the beach with people that I had just met that knew that I came from a background of fitness and nutrition. And I also knew that I was 20 pounds overweight because I was starting perimenopause and things were bad. I sat there for longer than I should have, contemplating the fact that I didn't want to take my swim cover off and I didn't want to jump into the water because I was so embarrassed at how I looked and my fitness level because this was my profession. And yet my daughter was literally struggling to breathe in the water. And it was like, it hit me like a Mack truck that I was like, that's my why. Like, I don't
Mhm.
ever, ever wanna be in a situation. And, because people I don't wanna leave anyone hanging, a junior lifeguard, he, like, swooped in, grabbed my daughter, pulled her right back out, and the mom said, "Oh, he just finished junior lifeguards." And I said, "My kids will for sure do that program." But, so everything ended up fine, but it was this moment of it just utter impact. So I always tell women, if your health or your health, fitness, whatever, if there's something holding you back that you what is that? Like,
Mhm.
because I've seen so many women, they lose the weight and all of a sudden they have the most amazing business. And so I'm here to make sure that that's never an issue. I want to give women the tools that that's not something that holds them back so that they can go find someone like Shelby to, meet other brilliant women or heal past trauma so that they can get out and be there. So it's just finding that whatever it is and getting super vulnerable is just really that key.
Yeah, that internal reason as to
Mhm.
why. That's so true. We have to have that. It's so impactful when we finally connect to that piece. It's just like with, let's say, goal setting, right? Somebody can say the thing that everybody says when they're in business, oh, I just want to make $10,000 a month, right? That's like the highlight of everybody's business career is $10,000 a month. But when you actually ask yourself why, it's so far removed from the money.
Mhm.
And just like you're saying with the health aspect, the why becomes so far removed from just changing our diet, right? There's so much impact that we can then create for ourselves and for everybody around us when we allow ourselves to dig deeper and connect to that why. There's this really beautiful thing called the why ladder that I learned from Tony Robbins. And it's like, you start with that reason. Okay, why are you wanting to join a program like Corey's? Why are you wanting to go on a new diet? Right. And you give yourself that reason why, but you don't just stop there. You ask yourself why to that, right? Maybe it's because I want to feel better. Okay, but why do you want to feel better? And you just keep asking yourself why until you get to that point where you feel that emotional rise within you. Until you get to that point where it's like the aha moment of like, holy shit. Okay, it wasn't that I'm just joining Corey's program to feel better in my body.
Mhm.
It's because if something happened to my child, I want to feel good enough to be able to do whatever it is to save her.
Mhm.
Ah, yeah. There's so much impact in the work that you're doing for women, and it's so much deeper than helping them lose weight.
Mhm.
So much deeper. No, and especially I think that with when you're centering your work around hormone regulation, right, and getting all of that, you can then connect to that why on an even deeper level because you're not bouncing back and forth on this emotional roller coaster, right?
Yep.
Like the ups and downs that hormones have and they play such a big part within our life. It's so important to focus on that. Like don't wait until you're at that point where you're like, why is my body doing this? Right? There's things that we can do now that we can do in our 20s to support ourselves when we hit our 40s. There's things we can do in our 30s to help support ourselves. I think that that is something that's really important for us all to recognize and realize too.
Well, and I think when you say that too, I think a lot of women, when they hear this and they hear us talk about hormones, they're going to say, well, I've gone to my doctor and this is what I hear all the time. And
Mhm.
they say everything's normal. And I said that by the time it shows up on your blood tests, you're way past the point. Like it's just so far and you're going to feel miserable. But I always tell women that, when we look at hormones, like there's this normal range and it's really big. And it just means, if you live in the United States, they take all the women in the US population and they say, if you're average 40, this is what your hormones should be. And if you're somewhere in there, then you're okay. And, but it's not that. It's you want those hormones to be optimized so that you don't feel that. Even with me, when I first went to my doctor at 40, I said, something's, and this is how it all started. I said, something's got to be wrong. They did all my blood work and they said, it's normal. And I said, well, then what the hell is wrong with me? If everything is normal, why do I feel this way? And so after I did all this stuff, I went back to my doctor and I said, okay, let's do my blood panel. This was a year later. They did my blood panel and they said, okay, everything's normal. It looks good. And I said, but I want to see the numbers. And we looked at the
Yeah.
numbers and my blood pressure was better. My A1C was better. The sugars were better. Like all these numbers were better. Cholesterol was better. And the doctor looked at me and she goes, okay, so what the hell did you do? Because everything was better, right? But it was still normal. And
Yeah.
that's the problem that I find with women is that, so people always ask me, do you make me do blood tests or do you make me do a hormone panel or saliva? And I said, no, because I really don't care. Because
Mhm.
you've probably already been to your doctor and they've said you're normal. What I want to focus on is your symptoms. When you come to me and
Mhm.
say, I can't remember anything, or my anxiety is driving me insane, or I can't sleep, or I have night sweats, or any of that stuff, I want that to go away. And it's interesting because women will talk to me after they've worked with me for like 2 weeks and say, I haven't lost any weight. Okay. I said, well, how are you sleeping? Oh my gosh, I've never slept better. Okay. Well, how's your energy? I'm like through the roof. And I said, okay, the weight will come. But first of all, let's just feel better,
Yeah.
because you can't shed weight. I would tell women you can't shed weight if you feel anything else is going on in your body. And it doesn't just have to do with health, it could be all kinds of stuff going on, trauma, anything in your life. You can't get rid of it because your body, in order to let go of excess weight and inflammation, it has to be at a healthy spot. So I always tell women the weight will just fall off. Once we get those hormones where they need to be and you're in the right mindset, it'll fall
Yeah.
off. But until then,
Yeah.
it can't.
Yeah. Because it's almost what is keeping you safe, right? It almost becomes like this protective thing that your body does and creates. It's hold on to that weight because there's all this other stuff that's not functioning properly.
Yeah.
And it's, not to knock obviously like the medical system or any of that, but everything does become just that range and oh, it's normal, but why do I not feel good? And why are these things happening? Well, we can't see anything in these numbers and in these charts. So it must be something just going on in your head almost is something that I actually experienced myself in high school. I got extremely, extremely sick and I was having blackout spells and I just couldn't focus, the worst brain fog, pain all over my body. And all of my numbers, and every single test that was run was fine. Right? Oh, no, you're good. So let's just go ahead and everything's normal. So we'll just prescribe you this anyways, because then maybe it'll help, right? We'll prescribe you pain medication because then it'll help the pain that you're feeling. Or they wanted to put me on antidepressants, even though I wasn't depressed. Let's put you on antidepressants because then it's a nerve blocker. So then you won't feel the pain. And even in high school, I was like, absolutely not. Like, none of this makes sense. You can't even tell me what's wrong, but you want to just give me a band-aid to make me feel better and tell me that that's going to work. And so after high school, I took the time to really learn about the body. And I went to a chiropractor who did muscle testing and all of that, and just focused on Chinese herbs and just naturally healed by changing my diet and eating only fruits, or not even fruits, veggies, meat, and nuts. And I did that for 6 months. And was it hard? Hell yeah, it was hard, especially being in your 20s. Like, you're going out and everybody wants to go out and eat and drink all the time. But that was the best thing I ever did for myself, was honor that I could change the way that my body felt by way of what I was eating. And it really just was a matter of detoxing my gut and clearing up all the inflammation within my body. And it was like a night and day difference.
Yep.
But we don't realize that because we're not told this. We're not taught this
Mm-mm.
at all. So thank God for you, because this is the kind of stuff that women need. This is the kind of inspiration and the kind of help and the resources that we need to just know that our body isn't functioning at its best, not because we're necessarily doing something wrong, but it's because we don't know what to do right
Mm.
to support it.
Yep.
And I know that you have something fantastic that's really going to help everybody to just kind of get that needle moving forward and take that first step into maybe connecting and understanding what's going on with themselves or how to support their body. So what is that they can grab from you?
So I think the best thing is just to start with our hormone quiz. Most people just don't understand, what the hormones are. And so if you just go to our website, then it has right there on the front, there's a whole bunch of free resources. But I always tell people, take that hormone quiz and figure out exactly, because a lot of people don't even think about it. And I will tell you, especially for any of the women that are listening to this that have a significant other, we have so many wives, spouses, girlfriends, whatever, that do this program and their significant other does it with them. And I always tell people, okay, be prepared because the males will lose weight faster and get better results faster. But everything that we do, and I know because the women that are here are career oriented, they have kids, everything we do is nutrition based. Nothing we do is like, here's a supplement, here's a fad diet. It's all nutrition based, it's all real good food. So everything that we're asking our clients to make, you can make it for your kids, you can make it for your infants, you can do it as a nursing mom. It's really, we want to make life simple and healthier. But I think so many people just don't understand that there's something going on with their hormones until I start saying, are you experiencing this? Are you experiencing this? And the reason why it works with men and women is because what we're really focusing on is the metabolism hormones. So at any age, this is why it works. We work with teens, we work with pregnancy, postpartum, menopause, perimenopause, because it's metabolism hormones that, if your other hormones are going crazy, the metabolism hormones suffer as well. So finding out which of those is really the issue. And then, of course, all you have to do, you fill out the quiz. It's going to tell you right away. You hit submit. We send you a whole bunch of information that says, these are your first steps to start feeling better. Because ultimately, you can make just a few simple changes and, you're going to see it. I always tell people, if you look at any of my social, if you actually pay attention to my social, I give you all the answers. It's exactly what you should do. But I think it's ultimately people are like, oh, that's kind of hard. I don't know if I want to do that. But it's life changing. So,
Yeah. Honor yourself. Just do it. Just do it.
yeah.
Give it a shot. What can hurt by just giving it a go and seeing? I mean, even in 30 days, I'm sure that your clients are feeling a change and seeing a shift, whether it be within that sleep or the energy, the brain fog, the anxiety. I'm sure people even do like focus, right? That when you're getting all of that cleared up, and I think that that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs deal with, and something that I hear so often is, oh, I'm just so distracted. I just can't focus. I just don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's tied to a lot of just what's going on within the body, not just, well, this is just how my brain works. Maybe not. Maybe there's something else that you can do to support yourself and give yourself that clarity and that focus. So thank you for sharing that. You can find that link in the show notes below. Make sure to go take the quiz, get all of the advice dropped easily into your inbox so that you can start on this next chapter in your life to just start feeling better. And where else can people find you?
So I always make the running joke, as long as you can spell my name, you can find me. So it's Corry. So I always tell people it's like sorry, but with a C. And then the last name is Matthews. For anyone that is old enough, you'll remember Boy Meets World. So Corry Matthews. But so I put a lot on social media. So on Instagram and both on Facebook, I put information on there all the time about balancing hormones and what you need to do for those. So I would just, listen to some of it. Sometimes people listen to it and they resonated with it and go, "Oh my, I never even knew that. I never even thought about that."
Yeah. Yeah. That one little drop of goodness that just gets your brain thinking. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, the impact that you've been able to make within not only your life, but those that you help and support, and just now the role model that you get to be for your daughters. Because I'm sure there's so much inspiration that they gain from you, watching you move through all this and the work that you do and who you support, even though teenagers are so challenging. You know that they're going to look back and they're going to be like, man, my mom was a badass. She really did it.
I have one that'll be on social with me, and the other is like, "Mom, my friends are on social media. They might see me."
Right, that transition where you're embarrassed of your mom and then you slowly come back and you're like, "Ah, she's the best thing in my life."
Exactly.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this, for sharing yourself. It has been a absolute pleasure to just chat with you and learn more and be able to give all of your goodness and just hold space for this conversation, because it's something that is so important. No matter what you do, what field you are in your life, we all need a better health and wellness and just that support and that community to be able to get ourselves into a prime state where we can actually function in a way that feels good. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and we will talk with you soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode on Behind the Boss Lady podcast. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at The Boss Lady Agency and subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. Leave a review or share with me what your biggest takeaway was. I can't wait to connect with you more, and I'll see you next week.